No Rest for the Wicked is an incredible game that I've spent far too much time playing, considering its lack of content right now. Like, don't get me wrong, there's still like 20 hours worth of content in this game right now before it gets to the early access padding. But just based on what I've experienced so far, it looks like the full game is going to take over 100 hours to complete. Not rushing the main story, just enjoying the world. This game is a work of art. Like, just look at how beautiful it is. So at its core, this is top-down Dark Souls. It also does have a lot of mechanics borrowed from other ARPGs like Path of Exile and Diablo, most of all relating to the gear that you get. They'll end up having different passives, you can enchant them, you can socket gems into them, stuff like that. But the combat is still Souls-like combat. So you have to dodge, you have iframes, and the enemies have very televised attacks. What really impressed me about this game is despite being locked to an upward camera angle, they somehow managed to make the world intricate and detailed. I'm not talking about the graphics, I'm talking about the sheer amount of secrets that they hide with the perspective. Like, you might go under a bridge and it's like, oh, there's treasure. The sheer level of verticality that they managed to get in a game with this camera perspective is not something I've seen before. So I'm assuming most of you already know the mechanics of a Souls-like, but just in case you don't, one of the best things about these games is that you have a set amount of healing flasks that will recharge when you rest, but all of the enemies will respawn when you rest as well, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. No Rest for the Wicked, on the other hand, has Bloodborne's stupid consumable healing items, which means that if you get to a difficult boss in the game and you run out of healing items, you're gonna have to stop what you're doing and go out of your way to farm more. But to compensate for that, the enemies actually don't respawn when you rest. Instead, what happens is as you explore the world, it'll slowly get enveloped by a fog of war over time. So areas that you revisit might slightly change in their architecture, but more importantly, the enemy placement will change, the enemy types might change, treasure might change, and in some rare cases, an entire zone might actually upgrade in difficulty with new types of enemies. But it's actually very rewarding because stronger enemies means more XP, and it also means better gear. So the adventuring is definitely exciting, but unfortunately there's only really 3 different areas in the game right now that you can explore. Like, there's the beach area, there's the sewer area, and then there's the mountain area. That's it. I feel like we've got a third of what the full map is going to be. The last area isn't really for adventuring, but it's the town. Now, based on the in-game lore, it sounds like there's actually going to be a lot of massive cities that are similar to Sacrament, if not larger, which is absolutely insane to me because this town is nuts. Like, it took me so long to memorize the layout, but you'll be spending a lot of time in town just because it's where you're going to store most of your items and your only safe haven. But on top of that, as you go out in the world, chop down trees, mine ore, stuff like that, you can spend those resources to upgrade different shops in the town so that they can then sell better gear. The shops will visually change, but you can also have some more functional upgrades, like a staircase that cuts down on travel time between one area and another. If there's one thing that I would genuinely complain about and hope that they rectify in the full game, it's the fast traveling. Basically, when you rest at a whisper out in the world, you can fast travel back to town. And then while you're in town, you can fast travel back to the last whisper you rested at. I understand that this incentivizes the player to actively go out and explore, and I'm all for that when an area is still fresh. But once I've gone through an area 10, 20, 30 times, then I just want to be able to warp out and be efficient. Considering how large this map is going to be, it's really impressive that you can end up walking from one side to another, but it could also become really annoying. My other complaint would just be around the healing items. Like, they have a 10-second cooldown between feasting, which 10 seconds is a long time in a game like this, and I understand they're trying to make healing a sense of urgency where you should only heal when you can. But most of the time, it just made the pacing of fights really slow. So a lot of times you get hit in the middle of a fight, you heal, you fight for a little bit more, then you get hit, and suddenly now you have to stop what you're doing, run away, and wait out that stupid 10-second timer before you can actually progress. I just find it really weird that they ended up essentially going backwards on a tried and true mechanic that Dark Souls 3 perfected. Overall, I give this game a very high score, and I would still recommend recommend that you buy it and play it. They've had hot fixes come out almost every day since this launched into early access. Not only with performance fixes, but huge quality of life changes too. Unlike so much of the slop out there, these developers clearly are passionate about making this video game. The only thing that I'd say is keep in mind this is early access, so the content abruptly comes to an end, and now we just kind of gotta wait until they add multiplayer and until they start adding more areas to explore.